today's conversation of women in the workforce is a subject that sits at the intersection of economic, social change, and national development. And it's very close to my heart, being one women who have worked in this corporate sector for a long time, yet have stepped down after a while because of family issues, etc. So it's very interesting to see both of you with two different career trajectories. One, Priya, you, who have continued her trajectory, and today with breaks. Yeah, we talk about it. But today you're the CHRO of a well-known engineering services and solutions company. And Neeta, you had a very, very promising career in the field of consumer durables and electronics. And but you decided to step down to a different kind of a role. And in the corporate jargon, it would be a step down since you sort of started doing consulting and you could be more at home, etc. But never like it was you were very successful nevertheless. But it was a different kind of a role, and different function completely. Completely. All my career, corporate career, was marketing. I went into a role which was consulting in HR. Correct. Correct. But which one had seen from the other end of the spectrum. Right. Right. Being in an organization. Very interesting. But yeah, to do it was a challenge. And as you know that it's not easy for us women to be in the workforce, and we see the number of women in the boards, etc., is not so well represented as it should be. So, keeping all this background in mind, I have a few questions for you in the podcast, and if you could just answer them as freely as informally. This is going to be an informal discussion, so feel free to say whatever you think correct. And so first, I will talk about both your career journeys and the pivotal moments. Okay. So both of you have more than 2 decades, almost 3 decades of experience in in the sector, like in the workforce. But what were the turning points? It could be positive or challenging, but which shaped your career trajectories at the end of the day. So, if you could talk about that, maybe Priya first, sure, then Neeta. Yeah, sure, sure. Sure.
Right. So, if you ask me, pivotal moments, you said, which kind of shaped my career. So yes, in the more than 2 decades that I have spent in the corporate sector, I think if I speak about myself, um, I can say that I started too early. I would say earlier than usual because I was an undergrad and I was already working full time, and I would really appreciate my past employers to have given me that opportunity. And I think I did well because it was over a period of time that I continued with them. So having said that, I think when I got married, there was this juncture where you've been in the force for some time and you want to sort of take it easy. So I can say marriage, later maternity, because I did take a 2 year break after I had my son. And that was a consciously taken decision where I wanted to give that time and things like that. So there are junctures, and I think, I'm not, this is not just me. I'm sharing it because you've asked me my journey. But I think I see that happen all the time. Another juncture was when I had to spend a bit of time on elder care because I had a senior citizen at home. One of my in-laws was ailing at that point in time, and for a year almost, and I thought that that was more important. So again, I had to take that break. Yeah. So these are, I think, things which happen in any individual's life and has happened in mine. Um, so these are things which shaped things because these are times when one takes a break, when you taking that break is not an issue. It's when you have to get back. mainstream, that you do face a challenge because that break is seen on your resume. And not only the person who may want to hire you, but also you yourself are very conscious of the fact that, you've had that disconnect for some time. So I guess, self-awareness about the fact that you have taken a break, where has the industry moved, what do I need to do in order to, keep up with the times and upskill myself if I need to, or do I need to change my career path totally? In her case, we just heard her how she moved from marketing into consulting, in HR consulting space. So things like that, those were things which even I had to do from time to time, at different phases of my life. So I think that's what has been my journey.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like Priya said, she started early, uh, when she was an undergrad. In my case, possibly I finished my education. I did my MBA, and post which I started working. Uh, so the industries that I started working in, which is consumer durables, and then I made a move. But that was a strategic move because I knew that telecom was coming up. That was a new industry then, and hence the move happened. Whereas the subsequent moves have been on account of personal reasons. So while one was very focused in terms of maintaining a corporate career, but I think over a period of time, you kind of decide to make adjustments in in your own professional life on account of many other factors. So, which is what happens. I mean, those then turn out, each of those then become a pivotal moment. That one was a strategic pivotal moment because you shifted into an
Because
industry,
of the industry. Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
wanted to be part of
You
that
saw the
growth
future in that
that
industry. Yeah.
But then the shift that happens is something that you consciously make. Saying
Yes.
that, okay, maybe I need a work-life balance now. And the reasons we will discuss over a period of our discussion here. But essentially that is what happens. Look, the earlier part of career was super in terms of because I was actually playing while I was working because I handled, brands like Barbie, I was doing Disney range of products. So,
Fantastic.
I mean, I was not working, I was actually playing. So I was enjoying all of that I was
Right.
doing.
Right.
So there was no concept at that point in time of fatigue coming in or because you were doing new things. You moved into telecom every day new learning. So look, these pivotal moments, I think for women at that point in time, I'm talking early 90s when
Absolutely.
very few women
Yes.
possibly,
Yes.
Had the
had the opportunity
opportunity.
to do it.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
was superly exciting, I thought. But like life happens to everyone, and I think women take a larger brunt of when life happens.
Yes.
From a professional point of view,
Yeah.
it happened in everyone's. So I think, that is how the pivot keeps rotating, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very interesting to hear about your journeys. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. Another small question I wanted to just intervene over here. What kept you anchored in the workforce during these difficult phases?
So in my case, Mona, clearly it was self-belief. I possibly was confident enough at that point in time. I'm not sure what is my status now. That I knew that I whatever I was doing well. And the fact that the organizations were such that there were fewer women, you also got recognized for doing what you were doing. So that self-belief led to self-motivation, which led to you keeping pushing yourself to perform all the time. You didn't want to put the break in your working life and you kept performing. So I think that helps. What also helps is a spouse support. Whatever said and done. I mean, if you're coming home every day at 9 o'clock and you still have a support,
Absolutely.
I mean, that helps.
A
So,
completely.
yeah. So I think those two things possibly. And since see, look, early part of your career, you're just about 25, whatever. When you start working, everything is new. So every learning is new. Every aspect, whether it is cultural, whether it is politics of the organization, whether it is your own learning, the travel that you start doing. I mean, smaller things, but that give you kicks in. Look, I'm traveling on work. Is a huge
It was
kick,
a huge kick.
right?
We used to do campaigns
Yeah.
in different cities.
Yeah, it was a huge
My
kick.
God. And even my parents were so proud of me.
Yeah.
Flying here, flying there, it was like.
While there was spouse support completely, the family support made a lot of difference. My
Absolutely.
dad would call me and say, don't give up your career. Make sure that you continue to work. We will help you in whichever way you want help. Which I thought was a huge, protective cover that you had around it to say that you can continue to do what you wish to do.
Sia, you were saying something similar, like what you were also, it was embedded in your mind that you had to work and things. So,
So, I think she sort of summarized it well. In my case, I would say two things which kept me anchored during these tough times, or I would call them challenging, pivotal times where you sort of take a change course of where you may be going. Have been the fact that you need to be financially independent. I think in my case, it was etched in my mind that I have to be on my own, no matter how well the family situation may be, or in general, you just want to be on your own, and that came to me from a very young age. That was one. The other was the fear of becoming obsolete, because you're in the thick of things, you're doing well, and suddenly you have to change course for whatever reasons, and somewhere you believe that yes, the other thing also needs your attention and your time. So you know that you can't possibly be doing both. So while you pick and choose, somewhere at the back of your mind, you are fearful of the fact that okay, I'm letting go of this. I know this is a break, and I know eventually I'll have to bounce back. But what if I become obsolete? So that fear sort of keeps you on your toes. And then when you're doing this and not in mainstream, you continue trying to keep up with the times in terms of whatever it is, technology, skills, upgrading yourself in terms of your how should I say, educational qualifications, whatever may be the case. So these two are important things.
very interesting.
Very important that I think our conditioning right from childhood. In your case, you talked about how your father encouraged you. In my case, it was my mother. So she's been my cheerleader throughout. And hence, I would say that, she kept me going always. So
So
I
nice.
guess
Really.
these are things which kind of
Yeah,
keep us,
absolutely.
rooted.
Absolutely.
And what were some of the, things that worked, like what were the personal strategies that you did to cope? Or were there some system enablers which did work? So you did, I think, cover, but very shortly, if you could talk about it.
See, look, what it worked in initial part of the career was that, look, I also got married early in life, okay? But thankfully, we didn't decide to have a child early. So you didn't have any responsibility. You were fancy free, foot loose as far as everything was concerned. You want work wise, personal life wise. So it just worked very well. I mean, one has to be lucky, I think, in that sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to think of any of those at that point in time. And hence I guess that worked. Okay. So I mean, it was not a design strategy, designed in a way because one didn't want to have family so much earlier since one had got married early. But otherwise, I think it worked out. It worked out because the MBA school that you did MBA in was good. The friends that you made kind of became your support or pivots in different organizations. See, for women over a period of time, I think earlier, we'll come to that point when we talk about it. Networking is a huge challenge.
Of course.
Okay, we are all rushing back home.
We are all rushing back. At that point in time, there was no such challenge. So both active working and passive. I would call it passive because they go for a smoke break and you go with them because you just don't care. You say that's all right. Because those are things very different things. You learn different things about the organization.
Yes.
So it happened then. But I think over a period of time, you could not sustain. I mean, in my case, because once a child happens and once all of that happens, those become barriers. So
Absolutely.
what were natural strategies become barriers.
You just run back home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
So did you have some system enablers?
Yeah, I could give you one or two examples about system enablers, and I've been lucky to have had them at the right time in my career. One is, an organization which I worked with for more than 5 years. And this was an idea which was given to me, but it's something which transpired and happened. So I always talk about this when I'm mentoring younger women of today who I see struggle with the similar kind of issues that we have been through as young mothers. Okay, that look, when you have a baby or you have a toddler at home and you want to get back to work, you typically hire help, domestic help, in order to take care of the child, and you're completely, in case you don't have other family support that is around you. So you're completely dependent on that one person to come in and leave at appropriate times in terms of taking care of the child. I had systemic enablement, I would say, in the form of one of my in laws talking to me about it and saying, look, you're dependent on this one lady. What if you keep your child in daycare? You're not dependent on one person, you're dependent on a system, right? So that system can't just shut down or not show up one fine day. It will all happen in a planned manner.
Right.
So why don't you use daycare instead?
Hmm.
Because it's always there. It's going to be stationary. It will open at a certain time. It will close at a
Right.
certain time, and you work your way
Yeah,
your
around
day
it.
around it instead of being dependent on a single person, whoever it may be. And that clicked. And it so happened that at that point in time, I see this newspaper ad. At that time, it was the era of newspaper corporate ads, where they said daycare facility available at the premises.
Oh,
And lo and behold, I happened to get selected. I joined. I stayed with them for 5 years and more. And
you use the daycare
I
facility.
was, so happy that my child was with me.
Yeah.
I could manage everything. Even sometimes, when they come down with fever, sometimes under the weather,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're around. You're making sure taking their medication.
That's
You're
such a big relief.
and it's right in front of you. So I think these are small things, tips which I share with other young women who also go through similar issues that use a system.
Hmm.
So it's a system enabler, I would
Yes.
say, a daycare
Absolutely.
center,
Perfect.
Absolutely.
right? So that's something
Yes.
which
Yeah.
I did.
Now we shift from a more personal journey to the more industry part of it, and how you look at the structural way the industry is placed today in terms of allowing women to work. Not allowing is not the right word, but facilitating women to work. Okay. So there are some barriers for advancement in the careers for women, that is for sure. And an interesting statistic to mention over here is like in 2005, I think around 32% of Indian women were in the workforce. And then by 2019, it fell from 32% to 23%.
And this informal workforce, that's
So
where-
yeah, so the interesting part was that from the 2010s, India was seeing an expansion in the education of girls, okay, and the rise of services economy and breakthroughs in IT, banking, hospitality, etc. So more girls were joining in these particular domains. However, the female workforce was going down because um, largely because the women were actually in the agricultural sector earlier, and they were also going now for the higher studies, and the number were decreasing hence. So, but today, like after say 2019, so the numbers are steadily increasing now, but definitely there's like this huge gap between the workforce of men and women, right? So that's where I wanted to talk to you about the barriers that women face and why. So if you could elucidate your thoughts on that as an industry, what are the barriers that women face?
Sure.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, look, I'm currently not an active corporate person, but whatever experience that I have, I would share from that past at that point in time. So, when I was, for example, an active corporate executive, the maternity leave was 3 months. whereas now it's gone up to 6 months. Okay, so which means if you needed take an extra month, that was without pay.
Mm.
Okay. So what it essentially meant was that as far as these policies, which was enabling women to make that decision, and unfortunately, what happens is that the biological clock of a woman and the career advance, because you've just got into work life and you're doing well for yourself, they are at crossroads always because you also don't want to miss the biological cycle and
Absolutely.
ensure that. So that is always at crossroads. So I always thought if organizations were more sensitive to this, okay, so this gender sensitivity also did not exist. Moment you decided to have a child and wanted to leave home early because you're still feeding the kid, people would say, "Oh, half day they are." So then it's putting pressure on yourself, saying that at one point I was doing well. I still want to be, in that sphere of being a whatever, doing well. But here is a choice that I have to make.
Yeah.
So this conflict, and I don't know whether organizations understood. It was then because things were like that. The which is for things like working from home is a post-COVID phenomenon.
Yeah.
It didn't exist,
Correct.
and the organizations were very rigid in their policies at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was difficult. It was definitely difficult for women in those times to, run the same race at the same pace every single time.
Correct.
No, you
Yeah.
don't. Do you agree?
No, I would agree. I would say we have
We've faced
faced that
Yeah.
kind of a thing, and therefore we had to pick and choose.
Mm.
Right? Today, on the positive side, what I can comment is that a lot of organizations, especially post-pandemic, and having experienced the work from home phenomena, because they've realized, everyone, including us, as well, have realized that there are certain things that are possible when you do them from home in a committed manner. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So there are companies which now are promoting return to work. Return to work post maternity.
Correct.
All right. So there are companies which are helping women reskill. Because see, 6 months you take a break. Supposing you extend, like you said, you needed to extend by a month. At that time, it would become 4 months or 5 months, leave without pay for whatever that extension period is. Similar things happen even today. So let's assume a lady takes off for about 6 to 8 months, 10 months, and then decides to come back when she's ready and has the necessary support to take care of the child. That's when organizations are now reskilling them because there's been a gap. And I'm talking about all sectors, not necessarily only the tech sector. All sectors. Of course, there are companies which are taking the lead in becoming pioneers, setting an example for others. There are some who are following suit. So they reskill them, they place them in roles which are conducive to what they need and what the
That's
organization
such a positive change. It is such.
So I think from an HR perspective, I can comment that it's important not just to give that maternity leave, but also to make sure how are we going to support the lady to come back and remain in the workforce because you want to retain. You want her to remain with the workforce and not take that drop unless for compelling reasons.
Of course. Yeah.
So these are certain ways it can be done. Secondly, I think it's important to have that conversation, that career conversation with the individual that, you were maybe on the field prior to maternity, but now do you want to take on a role which is, more a desk job, more an office job, wherein, you need to develop skills for that. So there has to be a give and take and an agreement where, both parties therefore come to the conclusion that you want to do this. And you create these opportunities to support women, I would say.
Yeah.
So from an industry standpoint, this is something this is doable, can be done, provided there is intent.
Agree.
Yeah. And intent has to be from both sides. And I would want to also say this, that it's not just the responsibility of the employer, but also the responsibility of the employee to be a sincere and committed employee. And not take advantage of whatever, if I may say so, facilities that she may be, getting or entitled to because of the phase that she's in.
Yeah.
So if she shows that initiative and that commitment,
The integrity is a big thing.
it's
Absolutely.
important that
Yeah.
So while the sensitivity and the commitment part comes in, I mean, both are
That's from the
sensitive, both
that's
are
from the
empathetic.
organization part.
From
But integrity is
from
from the,
Yes.
as you said,
Employee.
a very important point.
Yes.
Right?
because then more and more companies and more employers will take that upon
Step.
themselves, to encourage this.
Yeah.
But if they see misuse, if they
I
see,
agree.
then it doesn't,
Doesn't.
last.
So, what you talked about, like, so many years ago when your child was young, you had a crash in your work facility. So, do you see that as an industry-wide policy? I think the government has said that,
50-member
yes, company
organization
has to have
a crash.
a crash. So, how do you see that getting implemented? So, in India, it's always a challenge where, all the policies are set in place, but sometimes the implementation is where we fail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Policies exist and our recent labor codes that have been launched by the government right now in November, okay, which will get implemented April onwards, and we all are working towards, getting prepared for having that executed. Three, four things I would want to cite which are in favor of women employees or the women workforce that they are encouraging. One is that yes, you definitely need to have the creche facility, apart from other things which are taken care of by the company or the employer. Now, how this can get implemented is you may not be in a position to, because of your size, your headcount, your premises, you may not be able to have a daycare in your premises, but you definitely can have tie-ups with daycare
Other daycare
centers,
centers.
where you are then supporting the employee by subsidized allowance or some kind of a reimbursement that is given in order to, avail of that facility.
Right.
That is possible. So from now, I'm speaking from an implementation standpoint. So if you can't have it within your premises, at least support it in this manner. So it shows your intent as an employer that you want to support this cause. Yeah. The other thing that has got launched is that women can work the night shift. Okay.
That's right.
They can work the night shift provided they consent.
Safety.
You need their consent that they are okay to do that. And then you need to ensure that, you're
Safety
providing, a safe, conducive environment, transportation, etc., if they are operating in those hours of the night. That's another thing in the favor of the women workers or what women
But
employees.
that
I would say.
definitely will increase the number of women in the employment sector. I mean, if you've given that, the rickshaws are not run by women, the taxis are not run by women, in general. But you allow this nighttime facility of lot of industry, manufacturing processes who run third shift do not currently employ women.
Yeah.
Correct? If you provide this, you suddenly will see a surge in number of
Absolutely.
women in the
The
workforce.
most importantly, the POSH Act, which is again, actually, I would say that it should be for both genders, but when it got designed, it's been done especially for women so that, they feel safe at the workplace. So I think the government is doing its best in terms of, I would say its best meaning trying to improve from where we are to where we want to be.
It's always
In order to
a marathon. It's a marathon. And you are
most importantly, they have also now introduced, equity in terms of wages, which means that, salaries are
Equal
not,
wage.
it's expected that you don't differentiate or discriminate between genders when it comes to
and especially construction sites. You see, women are paid 100 rupees per day for working 8 hours, 500 rupees per day. For example, whatever. But such a huge gender parity, right? So
these are things which they are doing, and now it's up to us to really make sure that we implement them well and make a good job of it. So I think good steps from the government. It's up to industry. Some of us have taken the lead. Some are following suit. But I think it's a matter of time. But if everyone really, works towards it, I think we have a good future to look forward to when it comes to the women workforce.
I think, And one more point I think is on a larger scale or on a the government should also now, and there are programs which are running, but government should also focus on nutrition and education of girl child. You know, because gender, uh, what should I call it?
Equality or
It is such a huge thing because it's a cultural thing for us. So somewhere, like we educate saying scamsters, stay away from scamsters, stay away from whatever. And there are so many, when you go to watch a film, there are these documentaries that are run. I mean, it's now so important. If these are the steps which are being taken, it will be so very important to educate
the communication part of it.
to say that, you know, a girl child is equally capable. A child is a child, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a girl or a boy.
It's how you mold the child.
Yeah. So I think these things will go a long way in terms of retention.
Retention.
See, recruitment is.
So
yeah.
I want my last question is about recruitment and retention.
Okay.
So do you feel that, if you could design two policies or one policy which could be, related to the retention and initially the recruitment and the retention of more women in the workforce, what would that one policy or two policy be? Like which would be implemented, you know? And I was reading a recent IMF report which says that, like if we have the same number of women in the workforce as men, India's GDP has the potential to grow almost 28 to 30%. That's like a huge thing. Because at the end of the day, we also know that women are the people who actually, whatever they earn, they put it back in the family. The men sometimes don't.
Correct.
And also here, I would just like we are actually discussing a very small component of women who are educated, who are in the formal sector.
Correct.
So
Yes.
there is a vast number of people
In informal
sector
Yeah.
Yes.
whom we are not even touching.
Mm.
So at least if we get the formal, like the discussion, I'm focusing today on the formal sector because I feel that there would be some remnant effect if these sectors the women start approaching, like the safety measures that are being brought in by the labor laws and things. If those start getting implemented well, there will be other sectors, like say for example the gig workers, etc. I know it's not the best, but it's giving a lot of livelihoods today. So this could also probably trickle down to that kind of work also. So yeah.
It will work both ways,
Yeah,
actually, in
yeah.
my mind. Society will have to play an equal role. I mean, if you don't have the social health groups and the NGOs who will support women,
Right.
ensure that the message of educating and providing nutrition to a girl child is equally important than to a at a,
Very
at a
important.
groundwork,
At a grassroots level.
grassroots level, and the fact that that a gender norm has to be challenged, basically giving equal importance to both. So, the solutions will have to be at multiple levels. At grassroots level, there will have to be this, whatever, social health group or an NGO which will work towards upliftment
Agree.
from here. Government will play a role in terms of formalizing policies and possibly mandating corporates. There must be some,
The
some
labor codes are mandating them.
corporates to say.
Yes.
And then what do the corporates do?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if
All
both
of this
three-
has to fall
it
in
has to
place.
work, in tandem.
Yeah.
Maybe, in terms of corporate, for example, you could also support by giving more examples on that. But for women to sustain, recruitment is one part. You'll recruit a woman because you want to show gender diversity.
Correct,
Say,
right. Yeah.
Look, I have, and now government has also made it mandatory that on boards you need to have a women
Yes.
representation.
Absolutely.
So while this representation happens, mentorship programs,
Yes.
networking, formal networking for women to know that she could share her problem. Sometimes women is an enemy of a woman.
Absolutely. Yes.
Herself,
Yeah.
And how do you thus kind of build these social peer groups
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
organizations to support each other for retention.
Right.
True.
Right.
True.
Right?
I would agree. I mean, everything that you've summarized, Anita, is something which is happening in the corporate sector, and I will speak
Yeah,
for
now
normal
for
because
the,
I have
yeah,
I have
absolutely.
exposure to that, so I shall mention the same. So yeah, there are these networking groups. There are women in tech peer groups. So there are forums where women today can really voice themselves, or they share, they learn from each other and things like that. But I would still mention that we still have a long way to go. It's because of our societal conditioning. So if you're in a, I'll give you day-to-day examples that I observe, and it's something which others would agree. If you're in a conference room full of people where you're the only woman and you're taking a break and coffee needs to be ordered, they look at the woman
Yeah.
to do that. It's still looked upon as,
Yeah. Can you organize that?
can organize that.
Yeah.
She may not be from the admin or facilities team. She may be part of a peer group, but it's just taken for, it's assumed. That's one
Very
assumption.
interesting.
The other assumption is when we are part of performance reviews, or we're looking at rationalization of data, okay, peer groups, it is assumed that no, but she has two young children. I don't think she's in a position to take this role. Why are you assuming that? Have you asked her?
No, no, and why is her capability or her performance being just looked at from the number of hours she's spending? For all you know, she may be far more capable than those people who spend 20 hours in office versus she delivering in 8 hours.
That is
the
one.
condition.
The conditioning. It's assumed that no, but she may not be able to travel. She has a 2-year-old or she has a 4-year-old. I don't think she'll be in a position to travel. My only request is please ask and give her the opportunity to decide. Let her say she cannot.
Correct.
But do not assume and then, take her. That's one of the reasons that the pyramid is like this, where it is good up to this level, but then it starts
Decreasing.
the upward movement
Is very
is very few women and women with grit who do it. Maybe at the cost of family, maybe at the cost of whatever personal commitments they have, but then that's their choice. So I would say that these are policies I would want
So
to
what
tweak.
is a
I would want
policy
to
which
tweak.
is, yeah, what is a policy like, suppose it could be happening from an industry policy part of it, or, if organizations start following it. So as a practitioner person in HR, what would you, that, one single policy which you would.
For example, I would want to, while promoting people, actually have interviews. I'm not saying that it's not part of the process. Many companies have it as a regular process where they interview various candidates. But my only tweak in that policy would be to give ample opportunity for an individual, irrespective of gender, to justify themselves for that role,
Correct.
and not for the deciding authorities or authority to assume that the person may not be able to do it. Yeah. So that's a tweak in the policy that I would.
What would an India with strong women's workforce participation look like? Like, it's almost like a dream thing. Say, suppose we have half women and half men in an organization, which just doesn't happen anywhere today. And especially in the domain that we are today discussing, it's the more formal corporate sector, tech, consumer durables, manufacturing, telecom, electronics, all these are formal sectors. So, like, what would be the shift in childcare be? Like, what will be the shift in safety? You talked about that, there are some labor laws which are coming out. Mobility in terms of skilling, in terms of workplace culture. Like, I think you mentioned something like, uh, is it a half day today? Like when people leave a little bit early. So things like this how does that shift happen? So I think we have answered it to a particular till some part, because we are saying that we'll have to educate the people at large,
Hmm.
not
I,
only
yeah, in my mind, I think organizations will now have to be more aware. And maybe they're aware, but in terms of implementation, that use women's strength for devising every strategy. Women always come with a different perspective. She's very good at multitasking,
Correct.
right?
Mm.
She's empathetic most of the times. I mean, like I said, they are always their enemy also, but she would be empathetic because of the nurturing role that she plays everywhere.
Yeah.
Use these skills, keep them in mind while devising policies. Say, how do I make use of women who I know have these strengths to fit into which part of my corporate or organization to ensure that both benefit out of it. I think somewhere we miss out on, these finer nuances. They may look like a soft skill part of a
Softer
scope,
nuance.
nuance of a, but I think that definitely is one of the things that organizations will have to be more aware while implementing
Yeah.
policy or formalizing policies. Uh,
True. I
So,
think
so what is the future that you see, Priya?
see the way I look at
Because
things
you have been
going.
there for the
Yes.
last 23, 24
Yes.
years. And do you see that, we are going at a place where all these factors that I mentioned today
Hmm.
uh, will be executed, implemented, and thus women will also be at par at many of the things that Neeta was talking about.
So, the way I look at it is, it's both ways. While we are now, as compared to earlier, in a more conducive climate, whether be it government policies, whether it's industry practices, whether it's corporate governance and what every individual corporate wants within its own structure, it's also up to individuals to prove themselves. So if now they don't bite the bait and they let it slide, then it's not going to work. But looking at the younger population and the kind of decisiveness, the confidence
that they come
that the
with.
youngsters have as compared to what we were at that age, I think we can look forward to a very positive future.
Far more aware also.
Very, very conscious of what they should be doing,
And very
what
clear.
they should not be doing.
Very clear in what they want to
Yes,
achieve.
yes.
In my head, for example, when Priya started speaking about this, the classic example is women's cricket team.
They are at par now with the.
It's part of the whole,
Yeah.
which is what we
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Why should we look at saying that how do I make women rise to come to equal number? I mean, they've just proved it.
Right.
They've become a part of the whole, and which
Right.
is where I think
The whole.
like you said, it has to be.
It has to be both ways. It cannot be that, one side is really putting in effort and the other takes things for granted, or somewhere assumes, starts be feeling entitled.
Yeah.
It's not about entitlement. It's about, making that cut and, going for it and proving yourself and your mettle,
Yeah,
really.
absolutely, absolutely.
So that's what I would say.
So there is hope.
Oh,
We-
definitely.
we-
There is.
Yes.
There is.
100%. And the other thing is, I think organizations need to definitely, you said it earlier also, ensure that women are given a second chance when they take a break. In our times, it didn't happen.
Yeah, yeah.
The rigidity was far
Yes,
more.
yes.
But I hope that
I so agree with
yeah, I hope it changes.
It's all about what does the individual bring to the table and what kind of roles do I have. Provided, of course,
There is a
there
match
is a
there.
match there. You see potential there. It's not about, okay, you keep living in the past and say, she used to be good at this, today she's no good at that because she's had a break.
You have to say, what will she be good at?
What can she be good at?
Yes, absolutely. I
You know,
agree. I agree.
And look at roles which are conducive to having them as part of your workforce.
Because that is such a good experience that you've lost. Look, whatever said and done, that person did
It's
something.
organizational knowledge which sits with that person.
Absolutely.
And so you want to keep the person with you. Yeah.
Well, what a pleasure it has been talking to both of you.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for sharing so much of your experience as well as your thoughts of the future of women in the workforce. As I said at the very beginning, that is very close to my heart, and I really want, I see so much of potential in the workforce if women are there. And yeah, so it is hoping for the best, and the policies and the execution, everything will fall in place, and women will go from where they are to a much higher percentage.
It should it should
Entire-
normalize.
Yeah.
Normalize and
Yeah, we shouldn't be having this discussion 10 years from now. saying,
absolutely
how do we bring up
Very
women?
good point.
become part of life.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.